And welcome back to For Such a Time as This, the place where there is no such thing as a silent witness, end times prophecy, and Middle East wars. As always, I'm with Rick. Rick, how are you?
Doing good.
It is April 7th. I think it's important now, Rick, to give these dates now.
April 7th.
Because we may be looking back on these and say, what date did we do this? It's April 7th, 2026. It is the day in which our president has given Iran a deadline that is, I hear 8 p.m., I hear midnight. I think it's 8 p.m., right? 8
Yeah,
p.m.
Eastern time tonight.
If they do not open up the Straits of Hormuz and they do not agree to give up their nuclear weapons, President Trump has vowed to destroy their electrical power grid and their bridges, which I think would bring the entire nation, including civilians, to their knees. And it will be very, very difficult in Iran. So we will look at some updates as usual, what's going on in the Middle East, and we will also have a spiritual discussion. The spiritual discussion today will be wars, and rumors of wars as we look at the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24 and look at what's going on in our world. Let's get to the first update. Any intro to the first update, Rick?
Yeah, this is our pilots were rescued. Everybody's heard about this, but an update on that. And there was one other thing. I forgot what it was.
That's all right. Here, this is why we got it. Here we go. Here's the update.
Yeah, Harris, good morning. High-ranking U.S. sources telling Fox News that while that rescue was ongoing over the weekend, that CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper directed a strike against an IRGC underground headquarters outside of the Iranian capital of Tehran. Fox News has learned that B-2 bombers were used during this strike, along with massive ordnance penetrators, bunker buster bombs, to target this facility, the same weapons used in Operation Midnight Hammer. And I am told by these high-ranking U.S. sources that the headquarters of the IRGC was obliterated in that strike. This is significant because it speaks to the intelligence and military excellence of the U.S. military. As this rescue was ongoing, they were hammering the Iranian regime just outside the capital of Tehran with B-2 bombers overhead, U.S. Special Forces on the ground, more than 100 of them, rescuing that airman and bringing the fight to the IRGC just outside of the Iranian capital. Harris?
Talked about the fact that there were 2 pilots who were rescued very much. What do we know about that part of the mission?
Absolutely. We understand that on Friday, the pilot of the F-15 that was shot down on Thursday night was rescued, and then it wasn't until about 48 hours later that the other rescue took place. And again, Fox News can report that on Saturday morning, the CIA was able to confirm the location and the identity of that airman, to confirm that this was not an Iranian trap, at which point the message was delivered to the Secretary of War, the Joint Chiefs Chairman, and ultimately the President. I'm told at that point, President Trump ordered the operation, and within 12 hours, there were U.S. boots on the ground inside of Iran. Harris?
So we got our pilots back, safe and sound.
Got both of them.
Yeah. Now, one of the things we didn't have on there, I did see the president that there was a leak at the Pentagon. And the leak from the Pentagon went to a news outlet. I don't know which news outlet it was.
I didn't hear either.
Yeah, but it was a news outlet. And that is how Iran knew we had a downed pilot within their borders.
A second pilot.
The first pilot that we got pretty easily. It's the second one that was in the mountains of Iran. And that was revealed by a leak from the Pentagon to the U.S. media, and that's how Iran found out. Trump said somebody's going to jail, and he's going to go directly at the news and said who revealed this to you. And if they don't, Trump is saying the news outlet is going to jail. Because you can't do that. I mean, you can't.
That's treason. That's treasonous. You know how many men's lives were put in danger because of that?
So you can't hide behind the freedom of the media when you do something like that. The First Amendment, you can't hide against it. You can't. So the leak from the Pentagon will be found. So all right, here's the second update. Here we go.
We're back with Operation Epic Fury, and the U.S. and Iran reportedly receiving a two-phase ceasefire plan drafted by Pakistan. But President Trump is warning there will be strikes on power plants and bridges if the Strait of Hormuz isn't reopened by tomorrow's deadline. Matt Finn joining us now from Dubai with more details. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Griff. The AP and other outlets are reporting that Egyptian, Pakistani, and Turkish mediators have presented the United States and Iran with a proposed 45-day ceasefire plan that includes opening the Strait of Hormuz, which is far in the distance in the Persian Gulf behind me. Now, that proposal was reportedly sent to the U.S. and Iran last night. The Strait of Hormuz has become a key issue for any peace deal, as Iran is wreaking havoc on commerce and law-abiding ships trying to pass through that strait. Also last night, President Trump warning Iran of an 8 p.m. deadline tonight for Iran to come to the table, or there could be many U.S. attacks tomorrow. The president writing Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the blinking strait, you crazy blink, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. Now, over the weekend, I met in person here with Dr. Sanwar Gargash. He is referred to as His Excellency here in this country. He's an advisor to the president here. Dr. Gargash tells me that if the United States presents the right plan, the UAE, the country that we are in, will join the United States in using force on the Strait of Hormuz. Dr. Gargash saying, quote, "We're not ready to act as a maritime force, but we will join any American-led effort, international effort, to secure navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. We are ready to play our part." Also, Dr. Gargash telling us that he considers the United States the UAE's greatest security ally, and that the UAE is ready to, quote, double down on its relationship with the United States right now. Griff?
Trump needs to stop tweeting, man.
Yeah.
That was on Easter Sunday. He is tweeting or whatever on the Truth Social. Vulgar profanity.
Yeah, that was not good.
And I took the praise be Allah to be mocking Allah.
Right.
And what do you think the Muslims in Saudi Arabia and the AEU and Qatar, when you see them say that, when they see Trump mocking Allah, that doesn't help
I wouldn't think
diplomatic
so.
efforts. Trump just a screw is loose. A screw is loose there.
Yeah, he gets off on the deep end a lot.
That's just not wise. It's an unforced error. I mean, man. And again, you can say whatever you want to say. I think he has done great harm to the country in that he is an example, and for him to use such vulgar language, no president in modern history has used the language he's used.
No.
I mean, as bad as you can say about Obama or Clinton, they didn't cuss like this. You know, it's just very tasteless, and I find it difficult that nobody. What about his spiritual advisor, Paula White? She hasn't spoken to him about his language.
No, she hasn't said a word, I don't think.
I'd rather he speak in tongues than to speak like that. You know? Goodness. So, all right,
this is what is Iran's hope of winning this war right now?
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
What comes next if the deadline has been set for Tuesday night, do you think, Brian?
Well, I think part of the problem, Bill, is that the people you described, they're not negotiating from a conference room, they're negotiating from a war crater. And so I think this is a really tough time for the Iranian regime to even have a coherent answer to what's going on in their own country. And so Steve Witkoff has been leading the diplomacy to deal, with this regime. But quite frankly, Bill, this proposal for a 45-day ceasefire, I'm not sure Iran is going to get there. And I think that's going to then put President Trump into a very obviously difficult decision to make good on the threat and then to start going after the kind of critical infrastructure assets that the regime depends upon to fuel its war machine.
Okay, here is the previously mentioned Speaker of the Parliament. On Sunday, he said, your reckless moves are dragging the United States into a living hell for every single family. Your whole region is going to burn because you insist on following Netanyahu's commands. Make no mistake, you won't gain anything through war crimes. It appears to me that, in part, the language the president used on Easter Sunday morning, that he's frustrated. What would be the incentive for these Iranian leaders to concede their regime after a Persian empire has been in power? Not these radicals, but a Persian empire that's been in place for 2,500 years.
I think their definition of victory in this conflict is staying intact politically and keeping control over the street in Iran. If they lose control of the street, the regime collapses. And so whenever you see these statements, Bill, by the speaker or the foreign minister, all of those things are for Iranian consumption. They're not really for the United States. And they have to project this aura of invincibility to their own people, because if they appear weak, it's going to increase the odds that the people overthrow them. So I don't put a lot of stock into these statements, from all these different Iranian officials. I think there's a lot of back channeling going on.
So, yeah, I think the bargaining chip is that they get to live, but they don't care about living, obviously.
No, they value death more than life.
That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like. And I just hope we can get to a point where Trump realizes that. It's like he continues to think he's negotiating with Westerners.
With rational people.
Rational Westerners who think like him. And his inability to get into the mind of others and recognize others' positions and where they are. Trump, if they haven't dealt with you at this point, what makes you think they're going to deal with you now? It's just...
They have no concern for life, for their people, for their country.
For themselves, apparently. So.
Just, we're going to control everything.
Yeah. All right,
I feel sorry for the Iranian people. They're in a lose-lose situation either way.
But you know what? I'd rather go a few weeks, if necessary, without electricity than to live underneath that regime for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So, all right, here's the next update.
The Gulf states, led by Saudi Arabia, argue that an opportunity can be created to paralyze the regime in Tehran. In the Emiratis, they are calling for a raid. Bahrain and Kuwait support a ground entry and the conquest of Iran. Bin Salman of Saudi Arabia said in close talks that weakening Iran serves the interests of the Gulf states. It seems that European states are cooperating with Iran after Spain prevented air transit for aircrafts. The United States announced that it would prevent any American refueling creation on its territory. Italy prevented the United States military from using a military base as part of this war in Iran. The Italian step joins a series of similar moves by European countries in recent weeks. Iran is pressing the Houthis in Yemen to renew the fighting in the Red Sea, demanding that they prepare to renew the naval campaign, while in the background, the Houthis are afraid of escalation with the United States. And according to official sources, the attack on Israel over the weekend was a compromise between the different factions in the Houthi leadership, who are arguing amongst themselves over whether to enter the war or not.
Yeah, they're entering the war in the fourth quarter with an 80-point lead deficit. So.
Yeah, they've been very quiet for this whole thing. I think they have a little bit more intelligence than
they want to live. They're not committed to death as
the mullahs
the
are.
Iranians are.
Yeah.
I guess the Ayatollahs. So.
But Europe's backing out. They're showing their real colors.
And that's going to have ramifications that I think is going to throw our economic system up in the air. I really think that. I think that. Because one thing we do know, Trump is, how can we say this? He can be vindictive. He can be vindictive.
Yeah, he's very vindictive.
And, he's not going to take this thing.
I think he'll take our airmen and leave all those bases, bring all the military back that's in Europe.
Yeah. But then, what will Putin do?
Well,
If Europe is finally weakened, and if you get a Democratic president who's going to put them all back, Putin is saying, "I got 2 years.
yeah,
Let's rock and roll for 2 years."
I know he is. So, but the next video is going to add some information to that outlook.
Here we go.
NATO chief Mark Rutte gave the EU a reality check during his speech in the European Parliament, where he warned nations that they are dreaming if they think Europe can defend themselves without the US.
So when President Trump is doing good stuff, I will praise him. And I don't mind him publishing text messages. And if anyone thinks here, again, that the European Union or Europe as a whole can defend itself without the US, keep on dreaming. You can't. We can't. We need each other.
He then gave a warning saying if Europe wants to go at it without the US, it will cost them.
But for Europe, if you really want to go it alone, and those of you who are pleading for that, forget that you can ever get there with 5%. It will be 10%. You have to build up your own nuclear capability. That costs billions and billions of euros. You will lose then, in that scenario, you would lose the ultimate guarantor of our freedom, which is the US nuclear umbrella. Good luck.
Online commentators had mixed responses to the blunt warning. This person said, "Stop saying this nonsense. We can and we must. Europe is not some helpless dependency that needs to rent its security from the United States forever. We are an economic superpower with world-class industry, technology, talent, and capital. The idea that Europe is fundamentally incapable of defending itself is learned helplessness. Depending on the US was a choice. Becoming self-reliant is also a choice. And given today's world, it's no longer optional." But this person agreed with the NATO chief, saying, "Surely there isn't anyone anywhere who seriously thinks Europe can defend itself without the help of the US. Even if we increase defense spending to 10% of GDP, it would take 20 years because China and Russia will increase theirs too."
Yeah.
They never increased their 2% GDP.
I thought they did. They went up to 5, except Spain.
Spain didn't do it.
I think Spain was the only one who refused to do it.
So,
but like they said, you can't make up the 60 years you've lost
right
to Russia and the 40 years you've lost to China. They got a huge head start. But you know what? I think Trump is going to show them the reality if you have to spend all that money on your own military. And your little socialist
the socialist state's going to have to go bye-bye.
But you know what, Rick? That could also lead to economic collapse. Because if they have to take all that money they're going to socialism and carve out, and 10%, please, they got to catch up. It's going to be 20, 25%.
Well, yeah.
You go up to there. I don't know if their economic model doesn't work with that. It doesn't work.
No.
And that could lead to a meltdown in Europe. All right. Anything else before we get to the discussion of the day, Rick? Anything else?
No, I think that's pretty good overview of what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to switch to Matthew 24, which is
Verse
commonly
6.
known as the Olivet Discourse. 24, 6, 7, and 8. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place. But the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of birth pains. Now the famine part, they say, has already started with the fertilizer, right? Here's a picture of Europe and the Middle East. The Straits of Hormuz, they say is going to cause famine over there in Europe. They say that's already baked in. If, as we were saying, if we pull out of NATO, Putin's mind is going to be, I got at least 2 years. Trump's not going to come there defense, so let me weaken Europe as much as possible, as much as I can within the 2-year period. And the the ignorant Europeans, it's like they're children who can't see more than 2 feet in front of their faces. You guys are socialists for one reason and one reason only. You don't have a military. And Macron has said as much, right? On the streets, he says, we can't do it. We don't have a navy. we can't help you out even if we wanted to. That's what some of the theory is. Not that they didn't want to, they couldn't, and they were too embarrassed to say so. But who knows? Italy could have at least let us fly over your airspace, and they did not.
So Israel has defense agreements with France, and they're pulling out of all their agreements with
some defense agreements with
France.
France, yeah. Well, wars and rumors of wars. And I don't know, maybe we need to go back, I'll get it. But I remember when over a year ago, Rick, we were talking about this war in Ukraine. I said, they've been in a stalemate for so long. If we are right that this war in Ukraine with Russia could be the impetus for Matthew 24, like we just read, I said, Trump, as much as he's saying we're going to make a deal, I don't think he's going to make a deal. And to this day, April 7th, 2026, there's still no deal in Ukraine. Still no peace in Ukraine and Russia.
I think he gave up on that.
You think so? Yeah.
Especially with what's going on in the Middle East right now.
And especially what Europe is doing. Trump, I think Trump wants Putin to smack Europe at this point.
Could be.
Now, unfortunately, Ukraine is going to pay for it. And what's my man, what's the Ukrainian president again? Zelensky. I think he's come around to Trump. And it's Putin who didn't want peace. But if Trump can see Putin and Ukraine as teaching the European a lesson, that's going to get ugly.
It's interesting. Zelensky just had a meeting with Giuliani in Syria.
Giuliani, who's that?
He's the head of the Syrian state right now. He was.
Oh, you mean the ex-terrorist?
Yeah, the ex-terrorist, and they rolled out the red carpet for Zelensky.
Why?
I have no idea, but it showed Zelensky and Giuliani walking down the red carpet from an airplane. So I just saw that just before I came in.
What does Syria have to offer Ukraine?
I have no idea. That's how.
Well, because Syria, because Syria was the Assad regime was backed up by Russia.
Right.
So maybe this guy is saying, hey, we're against Assad in Russia. I don't know.
It's a mixed up world right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things I think the stage is set. When this peace treaty happens, when Iran, I don't know if they'll go completely away, but I think Iran will be weakened to the point whereas they'll be neutered for a little while.
Correct.
And when this stops and this quote-unquote peace treaty happens, I think Trump is going to turn to Europe with a fury. He's going to turn on Europe, and Europe is about to go belly up, I think, soon. Europe is about to go belly up. They're stupid. I think they're afraid of the Muslim population. I don't know. They're just not rational. The Europeans, we know, they've been kind of crazy for a while, but now they're in trouble. They're in trouble now.
Yes, they are. There's no going back now.
Yeah, I think it's already done. There's no going back. Well, thank you all, Rick. Any last words?
No, we'll be here next week, and
the fallout from
the ultimatum by Trump.
About to get exciting. Starting tonight. About to get exciting. So, excuse me. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Rick, as always.
Thank you, Pastor.
We will see you soon. Also want to advertise. It's April 7th, but if you're in the Chicagoland area, April 24th, we have an eschatology one-night conference from 6 or 6:30. I forget. I think like 6 to 8:30 at 1023 East Palatine Road in Palatine, Illinois. Would love to see you. Rick and I will present certain aspects of eschatological views, and we will sit and talk about the coming of our Lord. Again, thank you all. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Pastor.
Till next time. Bye-bye.